All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a rainy Saturday in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the last Saturday in February. Our guest today is Brenda Gilmore. She's a former senator. She just left office. She's a former council member. She has been engaged in the city and active in helping Nashville for many, many years. Senator, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Schuman. It's good to be here.
Well,
Over the years, enjoyed working with you on some important legislation and issues in Nashville, Davidson County, and it's a joy. And to see some of the names that popped up, I'm especially pleased to be here this morning.
well, thank you. And I'm sorry that it's raining outside. Hopefully you're inside where it's dry. As most of my guests know, for the first couple of minutes, we're letting people in. And I usually ask some type of irrelevant question, but today it's a relevant question.
Mm-hmm.
And it has something to do with a question that we got over the week from a former comptroller, I believe, Mr. Justin Wilson, who was talking about the fact that I think he said something like his mother used to do, you always wear red. Now,
I do.
You look very, very nice today. I know you have something going on after this, but you're not wearing red. So I'm sure the comptroller is very upset.
I know. In fact, the comptroller, when I was a member of the Finance and Ways Committee in the Senate, gave us all a picture, and he painted me in red, and I still treasure that little picture that he gave me. I do like red. It makes me feel more vibrant, and it energizes me. Years ago, when I was younger, I grew up in Gallatin, and they always said small town girls like red, so I never wore red. But my mother gave me a red blouse for Christmas one year, and I've never had my colors analyzed. Have you ever had your colors analyzed?
No, and I probably never do that.
I've never had neither have I. But when I put that red blouse on, it just seems like it gave me new energy, and it with my complexion is just popped. And since that time, I've been in red since. I will say though, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and our colors are red and white, or crimson and white, I would say, but it's hard to find crimson colors, so we opt to do red. Today, I'm going to Founders Day. When I leave your community meeting, my sorority is 110 years old. I'm very proud to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. 110 years ago, when the League of Women Voters was leading a parade to give women the right to vote, my sorority was the one who participated with them. Of course, at that time, we had to be at the back of the parade, but I am still proud that we felt, even though Black women at that time could not vote, that we felt compelled enough to march to ensure that women at that time would be white women would have the right to vote. And even today, we still take being active in the community very serious, and being involved and making sure that whether it's a dog fight, that we participate in the voting process.
I got it. I didn't know that bit of history about your sorority.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fascinating, and we've talked on this show about making sure that we record a lot of Nashville and Tennessee history, to make sure that we don't lose it. As we get further and further away from some of those historic events that happen in Tennessee, we need to make sure that we get it down in writing so that future generations will know.
I agree.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll share this with you. I'm really looking forward to an evening event that I'm going to. The NAACP is sponsoring the Image Awards, the national NAACP. We're also going to do it here in Nashville. And it's this evening at 5 o'clock at the Country Music Association. And we're going to be honoring some of the civil rights icons. We still have probably about 20 or 25 of our living civil rights icons who participated in the civil rights marches and the sit-ins to integrate the downtown counters. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I will be presenting them with some awards and thanking them for the part that they played in ensuring that all of us have equal rights. So you talked about history, and this is still Black History Month. So
that's right.
I don't know if it's coincidental that I got to be a part of your community meeting on February or not, but I feel proud to be a part of it doing Black
History Month. there's always a reason behind some of our badness. So we're so glad you're here. All right, so let's get started with how we usually do this. I will say that again, it's the last Saturday in February. We're really glad that Senator Brenda Gilmore is on our show. We are going to have to stop a little bit early because you've got to get to your event. So let's get right to it. With one last lingering question that I had in my mind, and that is, have you ever seen former Comptroller Justin Wilson dressed in red?
Well, for years, during the entire time that I spent in the General Assembly as a state representative and a state senator, I always sponsored the Go Red initiative, which brings awareness to heart disease in women. And you probably know that's the #1 killer of women. And so I would encourage all of the legislature and all the officers, the constitutional officers and staff to wear red. So I would see him in red during that time.
Good. Just making sure that
yes,
people opportunity.
Yes, he would cooperate and wear a red tie and I think a few instances a red jacket.
All right, good. All right, so let me ask you the question that we always start with all our guests is, tell us about yourself. Senator, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what have you been doing? I know most of it, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Gallatin. I always feel very proud to say that I'm a small town girl. I try to hold on to my small town values. Started at Union Elementary, which was, of course, segregated. And I had a group of young friends who we knew that integration was going to happen in the early 70s. And we decided to go on over to Gallatin High to get acclimated to their culture. At Union High, I was an A student. I went to Gallatin High. So I went from being a Red Devil to being a Green Wave. And all of a sudden my grades plummeted. And it became, I became aware then that we were using outdated books with outdated information. Overall, my experience at Gallatin High was positive. There were some minor things that happened when you're in the 7th grade. Even the little things seem big, but I had a positive experience overall. I had some great teachers. There were a Little Church of Christ lady, Miss Crowder, who was the first lady. Her husband was the pastor of the Church of Christ church in Gallatin, who I guess saw something in me, and she would stay after school and tutor me to get my grades back up. When I ended up graduating from Gallatin High, I had gotten them back up because I had gone from a D at Gallatin High, and she got me up, and I received a scholarship to Ball State Community College, where I met my husband, and we just recently celebrated 50 years anniversary. When I moved to Nashville, I was always helping other candidates, licking stamps, knocking on doors, sending flyers out. And my husband had a friend who was running for judge, and he asked me if I would help her. And at the time, I really did not want to do it because we had taken a foster kid into our home, and it was taking a lot of my time. But I did help her, and I just fell in love with her. She was a great person. She didn't like campaigning though, so she would send me out as her surrogate. And I remember when I would go out and talk with her, people would say, you know, you should be the one that's running for an office. And sometimes I think women, we wait till somebody encourage us to do that. When I talk to young people and mentor young people, I always encourage them. You don't have to wait to, if you're interested in doing that and running for an elected office, you don't have to wait to be called. You can jump in yourself. But anyway, I think that was just a little bit of a confidence boost that I needed. I did jump in and became an executive committee woman. Enjoyed it so much. I ran for Metro Council in District 1, which at that time was Jolton and Bordeaux. And I thought that I ran against an incumbent and a white female. It was very difficult to do that, but I always felt like that I had enough wherewith in myself to represent Jolton, which is rural white, and Bordeaux, which is urban African American. And I was able to win that race. I think that people in Jolton sensed my sincerity and knew that I would be fair to both of those communities. Term limit started in the Metro Council. I don't know if you came in doing term limit or not, Vice
Yeah,
Mayor.
we came in, you would have been elected, I think the same year I was,
1999.
1999. So we came in with term limits, that's right.
Yes. And I enjoyed being a public servant so much, and I like to refer to myself as a public servant rather than a politician, that I looked around and I ran for state representative again against an incumbent. But I knocked on doors. I probably knocked on 4,000 doors twice, and people would see me out in the hot sun. And anytime a candidate runs, I tell them that if you want to win, knock on doors. And I overwhelmingly won with 60% of the vote at that time.
And then you served, how many years did you serve as a state representative?
I served, I believe, 12, it was either 12 or 16. It was from 2006 through 2018. And of course, the great Senator Thelma Harper retired, and it provided me an opportunity to run for state senator in 2018. And I was elected and carried every single precinct in District 19. And so I'm very proud of that. I think people saw that I could be fair regardless of, what kind of background you came from, whether you were Black or white, female or male, and that I was a hard worker, and they rewarded me by voting for me overwhelmingly. Yes.
Well, so you have done a tremendous amount of good things for this community.
Thank you.
Looking back, because you're no longer in the state Senate, you stepped down.
Right.
Looking back, pick something, because you've done so many things. Pick something that you really are very, very proud of that you were able to accomplish. And then I'm going to follow up with a more challenging question for you. Okay. But you came in, for years, the State House and the Senate were Democratic.
Correct.
You came in when things were switching. And so you've been up there at a time where the Democrats didn't have a lot of power.
Correct.
So go back to the question. Thinking back, tell me something that you're really, really proud of that you were able to accomplish.
Well, when I first got elected to the Tennessee General Assembly, environmental issues were my passion. And that was primarily because industrial type activities, landfills are usually sited and placed in poor communities and in communities of color. And so I continued the fight to keep landfills out of Bordeaux. When I went to the General Assembly, I asked the speaker at that time. Could I be on the environmental committee, and had the honor of chairing it. And but as years progressed, and I became interested in criminal justice reform, because when you're poor, sometimes you don't get adequate representation. You end up spending an enormous amount of time in prison. And I became interested in that. I think probably the two most important piece of legislation that I feel proud of is one is the piece of legislation where when you have a felony on your record and you go in to interview, then people cannot ask you about your past criminal record unless they're serious about hiring you. And that's called ban the box. And once they're serious about hiring you, once you get past that interview phase, then they can talk about your past criminal record. But that gives a person an opportunity to sell themselves without someone knowing their criminal history. So I felt very, very proud about that. I did get bipartisan support on that, and I feel very, very good about that. In fact, Representative William Lambert, whom he and I go back and forth all the time about some of his legislation that he's sponsoring, even now, that I'm not pleased with it at all because it specifically targets Nashville, but he did assist me with that piece of legislation. The other piece of legislation that I felt particularly proud about is something called primary care. And it's intended to help women in particular who are the primary caregiver of children. As you probably know, if your parents are incarcerated, then there's a good chance that the children also will end up in prison. Well, this legislation that I passed, which was called the primary care legislation, it gives the judge tools where they don't have to send people to prison. There were about 20 or 25 different alternative sentencing they could give. They could send somebody to school and let them get their GED. If they had a drug or were addicted or alcoholic, they could send them somewhere that they could get help and become a whole person. If they needed help parenting, they could send them to parenting school. So I felt very, very proud of that, those two pieces of legislation.
And both important pieces of legislation. Okay, here's the here's the challenging question, and you may have touched on it a little bit when you're talking. Sometimes it's difficult to get legislation passed in the legislature. I can say whether you're Republican or Democrat, sometimes it's just difficult.
It is.
What if you could have, if the resources were there, if everybody was cooperating, what else would you have tried to get accomplished that probably would have been very difficult? But if the moon was in the right place and the sun was there and everything was in the right place, something that you would have liked to have tried to get through that, it's just would have been really difficult in other circumstances.
I think automatic restoration, when people have paid their dues in prison and society, I feel like that they should be able to come out and be ready to vote. We have a very complicated system of getting your records expunged. Although over the years we have reduced it significantly, the fees. However, still a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to get your records expunged. In some states, the moment you come out of prison, your rights are restored and you are ready to vote. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in the state of Tennessee, we have almost 500,000 people who have felonies on their records. And some of them, it would take years and years and years before they can pay all those court fees and be fully restored. Of those almost 500,000, 177,000 African American. And again, as I told you earlier, I think that our judicial system really give poor people a hard time when they find themselves caught up in our justice system. If I could have had a magic wand, then I would have passed that bill. If I could have had a magic wand, I would have reversed the law that we have where your rights are taken away from you if you are behind in child support. So I don't want to give the impression that I think that men or women should not pay child support. However, child support continues to accumulate when you're in prison. Some people come out of prison owing thousands, like $20,000, $30,000. They will never be able to repay that and will never be able to participate in the voting process. That's two pieces of legislation. If I had a magic wand, I would have I tried each year, but it was tough in that General Assembly to get those two pieces passed. There's another important one. Senator Ogberry has it this year. And that is where we give youth who committed horrendous crimes 51 years. And it's unlikely that if you go in prison and get 51-year sentence that you will ever make it out of prison. So I think that is too extensive to give youth that type of years in prison.
Well, Karen McIntyre just said we should give you the magic wand. Let me hold on to that magic wand. Tell me, because this question has come up on previous conversations with folks, and I'm always interested to figure out how we can do better. But helping our children, giving them opportunities. I was going to say more opportunities. Just sometimes just giving them opportunities, making sure that they're safe and they that our schools are helping. Everything is tied to giving children the care and love that we want them to have. What would you say? How do we go about improving our system? And that's, there's been talk about Department of Children's Services and they're overcrowded and they need more people and blah, blah, blah. But this is really important. And so
it is important. I think that there's a lot of things that we can do. First thing, we have millions of dollars in the Department of Human Services that we need to be challenging, making sure that children who go to school have free breakfast all across the board and free lunch. Of course, children cannot be attentive if they're hungry. Childcare is so expensive. Making sure that moms who want to work have safe and adequate childcare for their children. Sometimes it takes two parents to be able to afford their childcare. We make it so expensive that in some cases parents can't even afford to work because childcare is so expensive. Something that former Mayor Megan Berry used to say is that every school should be a quality school regardless of your zip code. And I truly believe that. Whether you go to Alex Green, which is in a working class community, or you go to Julia Green, which is in a primary prominent district, all those schools should be the same. If you go to Julia Green, I assure you that every parent, every child there probably has a computer, access to a computer, but that's not true in all of our schools. And because everything is so computerized now, sometimes it puts some of our children behind, but we've got to find a way to make sure that all of our schools are quality schools, regardless of what part of the city that you live in. The greatest gift that we can give any child is a quality education. So
I think you're right. Tell me, one of the questions that came in was about health disparities. Talk about that in regards to what you've seen up on the Hill, what you've seen as being Metro Council person. You know, you said it correctly. I mean, children they can't learn if they're hungry. And so we want to make sure that they're eating properly and that they're getting their meals. But talk about the overall health disparities and the concerns that you've seen as a public servant.
Well, again, I think that we got to be fair, even in the city of Nashville, Davidson County. We know that we all accumulate trash. As Americans, we accumulate too much trash. It is an unfair burden, though, to put it in poor community, put landfills in poor communities and communities where people of color reside. We see that in those cases, the people who reside in those neighborhoods usually have higher incidence of cancer and asthma. So I think as the mayor, whoever gets elected, the new council, that they really have to take a higher level of morality in ensuring that those landfills stay closed in Bordeaux and that we do not renew any of those permits. I think that we have committed a great travesty in the state of Tennessee, but not expanding Medicaid. That would have been billions and billions of dollars where people are either underinsured or have no insurance at all. I tell you, Vice Mayor Schumann, people don't believe this, but when you do not have insurance, you get treated a little different than people who have insurance. I remember years and years ago, I had a really bad cough, and I went into the drugstore. I had called my doctor and told her, I said, you got to give me something. This cold has been going on forever. So when I went to the drugstore, the pharmacist says, well, I assure you that you're going to get well after this prescription. And I said, why? And he says, because each of the pills were, I'm just going to give you an example. He said, $10 each. And I said, well, what do people do who can't afford that prescription? And he says, they just take longer. They get a cheaper medication, and it takes longer for them to get well. So we do have two systems in America and in Tennessee, the haves and the have-nots. And when you do not have insurance, people may not realize it, but you do not get the same quality insurance of healthcare. Sure, when you go through emergency room, that's the only option you have when you are seriously sick, but you kind of get patched up and pushed back out the door.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, that concerns me greatly that we have not expanded Medicaid in the state of Tennessee.
Well, there we go, trying to give you back that magic wand to get some of this stuff done.
And we're one of only a few states that still has not. Sometimes we compare ourselves to Arkansas, and Arkansas, of course, has expanded Medicaid, yes.
Well, we obviously want to be better. We want people to be healthier. We want to get away from this have and have nots, because we can't function very well in that system. We don't function at all in that system, and we want people to be safe and healthy and have the chance for good medical care in a country that has, I mean, tremendous wealth. And
correct.
All right. We'll keep working on that one. Tell me about, we had a question that came in about how to attract good quality candidates to run for office. So you were a part, based upon what you've told us, you got involved because you were interested, you got involved in people's campaigns, and then you went out and spoke. None of that is sometimes very easy, particularly when you're on your feet and you're not sure who you're talking to or whether they like you or they don't. But you had the courage to do it, and then people came up and said you should run. How do we get more good quality candidates to run for office? So that and I'll give you one thing extra. I mean, particularly in a time where it's not easy. First of all, it's not easy to run, but second of all, you're entering into right now a society that will pick on you, will say stuff. It's not sometimes very pleasant. And so most people, I've talked to people and they say, I don't want to do that.
Mhm,
How do we encourage people to run?
mhm. I'm not a fan of term limits, um, but I do think um, maybe 2 terms in Metro Council is not quite enough. But we should know that it's our responsibility to mentor the next generation of leaders. And when it becomes our time to pass the baton, that we should do that rather than staying in positions forever. I really feel like that I was doing a good job as a state senator, and I believe that had I wanted to run again, that I would have been reelected overwhelmingly. But I felt like it was my time to step aside so that other young people would have an opportunity to serve. It's our responsibility to look around in the community. And when we see people that we feel like have the potential and the skills that are transferable to be an elected official, I think that we should encourage them, plant that seed, be a mentor to them, um, just kind of shadow them, invite them to um, events that's happening out in the community. I think that that's what we have to do is we have to grow good public servants. And sometimes it starts on the lower level, either as an executive committee woman or executive committee man through our Metro Council system and then General Assembly. And who knows, in our US senators, congresswoman, and maybe it's time for us to have a president from Tennessee.
Well, I think you're a great example of someone who started at that level of just getting engaged in not your own campaign, but somebody else's, and then all of a sudden started moving through and serving on the Metro Council, running for State House, and then running for the State Senate. I think you're a great example of someone to follow. So we need to get that. We need to get that history recorded as well, because you are a great example of someone who has done that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about even though you're not up on the Hill, I know you've been paying attention to the legislation that's been filed against Nashville.
Correct.
And we're working through it. It's a matter of sometimes re-engineering or re-bringing back the ability to communicate. We are working on that with the legislature. I mean, it is what it is. Nashville and the state are going to continue to have to coexist. So we got to figure out ways to get along with each other.
I agree.
Tell me what you can about what you hear about this legislation. And then I'll chime in because I'm obviously working on it as well.
Well, there's a number of pieces of legislation that is targeted specifically toward Nashville. It's been rumored that some of the majority legislators are angry because our Metro Council turned down the Republican convention. I'm not certain if that's the reason or not, but in any event, reality is that there's quite a few pieces of legislation that is targeted toward Nashville. And one of them defunds Music City Center. One gives the governor and the speakers control over our Metropolitan Sports Authority. There's a piece of legislation up there that renames Representative John Lewis Way, a portion of Representative John Lewis Way to President Donald Trump. Abolishes community oversight boards, which I may say that was overwhelmingly approved by Davidson County residents. And of course, the big one of which I hear most about is reducing our Metro Council from 40 members to 20. And some of the council members have shared that they feel like that if that happens, that we will not have as many women on the council as we have, and we will not have as many African Americans and other people of color, that it really will hurt the diversity in Davidson County. I do like the example that I see in Senator Campbell and Senator Pody. They are working together to try to neutralize some of this legislation. I'm not certain how successful they will be, but I do like the fact that they are reaching across the aisles. She a Democrat and he a Republican, and working together to try to work through some of this legislation. And really, that's really the only way that we can get good stuff done in Davidson County. As you know, Davidson County was divided into 3 congressional districts, which I advocated against. And Senator Pody is now the senator for Nashville-Davidson County. So he is working with Senator Heidi, in particular this bill about reducing the Metro Council from 40 to 20 members.
So obviously there has been legislation in the past. We call it preemption, where the Metro Council, and it can apply to any city or county government, where we take a position on something and then the legislature can come in behind us and reverse what we did. They can stop us from doing stuff.
Right.
You know, one of the, and there's things like that there, it's happened over the years. I mean, in terms of, I think years ago, there was legislation that restricted cities and counties from dealing with tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's laws on the books about restricting guns. So there's a history of this going on. It just seems like lately, particularly with a very red state and a very blue city, that we're seeing more and more of it.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective as a former senator who was up there having to deal with some of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see us going forward?
Mm-hmm.
So we just had a comment that says going forward together. Well, at some point we got to figure this out. We have got to. I mean, it's not like we're going to disappear,
Right.
and it's not like the state's going to disappear. I mean, we are in this together. And the one last comment I'll make, which people understand, is that Nashville is one of the major driving forces of this state in terms of economic development and so many other things. So we have to figure out how to get along.
Exactly.
So I'm giving you that magic wand back.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do?
There has been a lot of legislation that has been passed in the General Assembly, which has had unintended consequences. I think one of them has to do with the Airbnb. I think that we're beginning to see that big corporations are having these tall and skinnies and these huge developments all over our city, which is reducing the number of houses for working class people. It's pushed our seniors and working class people out to some of the peripheral cities like Mount Juliet and Smyrna and Murfreesboro. And it isolates the seniors because their doctors are here, their churches are here, their grandchildren live in Nashville. I know a piece of legislation that has had a negative implication is when Metro Council passed requiring developers to set aside a certain percentage for affordable homes. And now we see how that negative consequences have hurt Nashville, that we do need more working class homes for teachers and our fire people and for policemen. But we've got to figure out a way, I guess, just to pick off some of the majority legislators one at a time, create relationships with them, and try to influence them to recognize how important Nashville is, and that when we hurt Nashville, then we're hurting the whole state of Tennessee. Years and years ago, even in Metro Council, when we finished Metro Council, we would go out and we would talk together and maybe eat pizza have a beer or a Coke, or if you wanted a non-alcoholic. And that became an issue in the General Assembly. Unless a lobbyist does something for all 99 members in the House, or all 33 members in the Senate, then of course that's illegal. So it's I think in some cases we've tried to make sure that everything was above board, but we've taken away opportunities for us to sit down and talk and have relationships. And relationships is how you get things done. But we've got to be creative and figure this thing out, because the legislation is up there now that is specifically targeted toward Nashville, I believe will have resoundingly negative implications for this whole state of Tennessee, not just Nashville, but the whole state of Tennessee.
Well, we are obviously working very diligently to try to figure out how to calm tensions down, how to get this legislation moved away. But I think a lot of the things you're talking about, if we can deal with it currently, we also have to deal with the future. And that is, what I would say is that Nashville and its government has to be able to function without always looking over its back, so that it can take its position. I mean, what we do in this country is, I mean, it's good to agree and disagree.
Exactly.
Lots of conversations, but Nashville has to be able to function as a government without Big Brother the state telling it what to do all the time. And so we have got to figure out a strategy going forward. Let me ask you this one last question, and I mentioned this to you before we got started. We got word yesterday that actually I got it through Senator Heidi Campbell's office that a group of white supremacists have called today to be a day of hate, and it's particularly targeted at Jewish communities. So everybody's kind of on a little bit more heightened alert. It's coming out of New York, but how do we? This is crazy. This is we have to stop this. We're supposed to be, we were always the melting pot of the world, and we wanted to embrace people. I know we've always had difficulties with stuff, but calling for a national day of hate is really, really sad. So again, I'm giving you back that magic wand. How do we stop this?
I think just creating opportunities where we get to know each other. Years and years ago, before I ran for Metro Council, Scarrett Bennett used to have something called a Day of Dialogue. I don't know if you remember that or not, but anyway, it brought groups of small groups together across different lines, and give us an opportunity just to talk about things. And I think we've got to find opportunities in our community to bring small groups together so that we can get to know each other. And we'll find out that we have more in common than we do differences. It's really unfortunate. I don't know if it has to do with social media, or it has to do with some things that we see on TV, but we have got to get back to caring about each other and not feeling so, not caring about the humanity of each other. I think that we were all shocked when we saw what happened to Mr. Tyree Nichols in Memphis and those police officers. And I asked myself, how could somebody treat a human like that? But I think we've just become so immune to violence that we see that these examples over and over again, whether it's Black or white, we see them. But all of us have to take personal responsibilities to make sure that we're creating space and time where we sit down and we talk to each other and get to know each other on a personal basis. Again, relationships, I think, are the crux of everything. positive going forward.
I think you're right.
Mhm.
Well, we are very thankful for you.
Thank
Thankful
you.
for-
Thank you. And
Thankful
thank
for.
you for this opportunity.
Oh, sure. Well,
It's-
I just wanted to say thank you to everything that you've done for this community. And knowing you, you will continue to be doing things for this community, even if you're not in the state Senate. So again, very appreciative of everything you've done. Appreciative of the fact that you were on this show. I know you've got places to go, so we're going to let you get to your next thing.
I have a full day. I have a full day. But thank you. It's been a pleasure always working with you, Vice Mayor, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. You did a good job when you were administrator in the state of Tennessee, and you've done, in my opinion, a great job since you've been Vice Mayor of Nashville. So continue to do a good job, making sure you're representing all of Nashville and doing what you can to improve our schools. I think that that's a great challenge. As I said earlier, the greatest gift that we can give any child is a good quality education. So let us do everything that we can to make sure that all of our schools are quality schools.
That's good. Well, we got a lot of work to do, but
We
that's
do.
what we're supposed to do.
We do have. Well, thanks again.
Thanks again. We will be, I checked, we're going to be off for the next 2 weeks. We've got stuff going on, but keep in touch with us, and everybody be safe. And I will tell you one last thing before we go. Senator Gilmore, you are apparently our 98th broadcast. We've been doing this for a couple of years. So you are number 98.
Okay.
And so we're trying to figure out what to do for our 100th.
Yes, you got to do something grand. Invite me back again.
I'm going to invite you back again. All right, everybody be safe. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up with you soon. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Take care.
All right.